Hello everyone, I'm so happy to have you here with me today. It is springtime finally here in Michigan. The birds are chirping, the tree frogs have been out, and I figured what better time than to talk about one of my favorite questions for spring, just while we're planting seeds and sowing seeds, is I'm starting a new medicinal herb garden, which plants should I start? And I love this question because it reminds me of my own roots and all the exciting possibilities. I actually started medicinal herb gardening in college in a tiny little apartment, and I lived there for 5 years, but every year I would start all my seeds in those tiny little plastic trays, and I'd put them in the windowsill in my bedroom, and my now husband would always complain about how much it smelled like a greenhouse in there. And yes, it did smell like a greenhouse, but I loved it and our cats loved it because every time that I transplanted the plants out onto our tiny little balcony, about yay big, can't do it with one hand, but they would sit out there for hours and they just catch bugs and chirp at birds and lay in the sun and, do general cat things. So you really don't need a lot of space to have a medicinal herb garden, whether you have acres or just a small little balcony. And so the plants that I chose for this list are easy to grow from seed. They have a wide variety of medicinal benefits and, of course, my personal preferences. So the first plant that I wanted to talk about today is yarrow, and yarrow is a hardy native perennial. It is an amazing first aid plant to help stop bleeding. It's an antiviral, anti-inflammatory. It helps to break fevers, and it's also one of our most bitter herbs, so it's great in digestive tonics as well. And now I chose yarrow because not just for its medicinal benefits, because it is so easy to start from seed. It is a perennial, so the first year you'll see the leaves sprout, and then the second year you'll get your flowers. And this is fine because both the leaves and the flowers are medicinal, so you can still get that first year harvest of just the leaves and then get your flowers the second year. And this is so hardy, and it's actually most potent in dry, arid, drought-like conditions. So even if you don't water it, it's probably going to be just fine. And as you can see here, I'm on my morning walk. Everything's super wet, so I'm trying not to fall into any puddles with my phone here. So I'm just going to turn this off for a second until I get through the swamp. All right, so that is the path I just walked through. It's not a river. That's my trail in the woods. So even though we live in the woods, it's still also kind of a swamp. Anyways, the second plant I want to talk about today is Monarda. It goes by many names, so bee balm, wild bergamot, Oswego tea, and so on. And the first time I saw this plant was actually as soon as I moved to the woods. It was the first plant that greeted me when I moved here. It was actually growing on the other side of my driveway. I don't know if you could hear that. Oh. Some birds are having fun. Anyways, bee balm, wild bee balm. As I was saying, it was one of the first plants that greeted me here. It was growing by my mailbox, and it had these beautiful purple blooms that were just swaying in the wind, and it had this beautiful, warm, spicy, pungent aroma just exuding from it, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And this plant is a great decongestant. It's a respiratory herb, and because it is so warm and pungent, it's a great digestive aid for relieving gas and bloating. And like yarrow, it's very hardy, very easy to grow from seed. You'll just want to pinch off the growing tip so that it branches, and you can harvest more blooms and more medicine that way. And also like yarrow, it is a perennial, so the first year you'll get leaves, and the second year you will get blooms. And you can harvest the leaves the first year again, so you still get that first year harvest. And I wanted to stop here because this is our little marsh area. It doesn't look like much right now, I guess. But as you can hear, it's very lively. And it's just so amazing during the summer. The deer come here. There's all sorts of milkweeds and butterflies and just wildlife here. This is really like the hub of our little piece of heaven here in the woods. So The third plant I want to talk about gets me all warm and fuzzy inside just thinking about it, and that is Marshmallow. And Marshmallow is so cute because it has these tiny little white flowers that bloom the first year, even though it is a perennial. But the real medicine is in the roots. And the roots are cooling and mucilaginous, which means it's a great remedy for sore throats or applying externally on skin irritations as well. And it does have compounds to boost the immune system and aid the digestive system as well. Now, if you want to grow Marshmallow, you'll want to scarify the seeds first for 30 days, which means just keeping them in wet sand in your refrigerator. This helps the germination rates so you get more plants. And now I've killed probably hundreds of seedlings throughout the years and had hundreds more not even sprout, so don't get discouraged if it doesn't work. Herbs are kind of tricky, and it's more of an art form than a science, honestly. And this is a perennial, like I mentioned, so the second year the roots will be ready to harvest. And once you get it established, though, it's very hardy. It can grow really tall, 5 to 6 feet, depending on where you plant it. And if you're waiting for the root harvest, the first you can try making a flower essence with the little white flowers. It's a really calming, nurturing essence, and I just truly love it. The flowers are also edible, so you can use them in salads or whatever dish that you like, baked goods, whatever. Number 4 is chamomile. And my first medicinal experience with chamomile was actually in a beer. I had a really upset stomach, but I really wanted to try this beer because it had honey and chamomile in it, and I thought it was going to be a total disaster. But to my surprise, after just one beer, my stomach was settled, I was totally fine, and I was a believer in chamomile ever since. And besides the digestive effects, obviously not just in beer but in teas and other preparations, it's also great for the nervous system as a sedative, and it's an anti-inflammatory, antibacterial. It can lower blood pressure as well, and honestly I just love the flavor and the aroma of this plant. It's kind of like a citrusy apple, which is really great. Growing chamomile is like a dream. It's one of the easiest plants I've ever grown. It germinates readily, it is cold hardy, and it just keeps blooming throughout the summer. The more you harvest, the more it produces. And the variety that I use is a Polish variety called Zloty Lan. It is a German chamomile, and German chamomiles are annuals. They grow a couple feet tall, but they have the most medicinal value out of all the chamomiles. The other chamomile you can grow is Roman chamomile, and that is a low-growing perennial, and it's medicinal as well, maybe just not as potent, but you can use it in between pathways as well if you just need a little bit of filler. It's a great medicine for that. Alright, I'm just going to pop a squat for the rest of this video here. But number 5 is Echinacea, of course. And this is obviously very popular for its immune boosting properties, but it is also so important for the environment because it is endangered throughout the country, so the more we plant it in our gardens, the better it is for our native plant communities as well. This is Odin in the background giving us a great shot from behind. Odie boy, come here. What are you eating? Hey, get Odin, come here. What do you have? Go. What do you have? Anyways, Echinacea, great for the immune system, great for the environment. If you do want to grow Echinacea, this is like many of the other plants on the list. It is a perennial, so leaves the first year, blooms the second. You'll probably want to stratify the seeds first as well, kind of like Marshmallow. If you don't need to stratify them. You'll just have better germination rates. And there are a few different varieties that are medicinal of Echinacea. The most common, though, that I use is Echinacea purpurea. Now, I was going to stop at 5 plants, but I had to fit in just one more, and it is holy basil or Tulsi. And I absolutely love this plant. I actually just started growing this last year, and I fell in love with it immediately. Even though it's a hot weather, exotic medicinal plant, it absolutely thrives here in my garden in Michigan. It loves dry and fertile soil, so it's really easy to take care of. It is annual here in the colder temperatures, but if you live in a warmer climate, you might be able to grow it as a perennial as well. There are many varieties of Tulsi, and they're all medicinal. They just have slightly different flavors and different effects on the body. So you'll want to try as many varieties as you can because, like I said, it's just a joyful plant. The one that I tried is Krishna, I believe, last year, and I'm trying Kapoor and Vana Tulsi as well this year. And the one that I tried is kind of like almost like a citrusy bubblegum flavor, and I hate bubblegum, but this is really like a delicious. I love it so much. The reason I chose Tulsi for the sixth plant is because it is an adaptogen, and adaptogens are very popular right now in the natural world, and that is because if you take this plant over a long period of time, either in a tea or another preparation, it has balancing effects on the body. And this is great for conditions such as fatigue, depression, or chronic inflammation. So this is just great for the energy, the mood, just a very centering, grounding plant. So obviously this is just the tip of the medicinal herb iceberg, but I just love this little group of plants together, not just for the medicinal benefits or the ease of growth, but also because they look so good together. Now you've got a wide variety of colors and heights. So for example, the lowest height level is chamomile and Tulsi, the middle height level is Echinacea, Yarrow, and bee balm, and at your highest height level is Marshmallow. So they look really great together. If you just have a small space, it's a really good group of herbs to start out with. And now I know this can be overwhelming starting out with a brand new herb garden. Just focus on a small number first to really get your head around it and figure out what they like, what they don't like. And the best way I've found to do this is to just keep a garden journal, write down what you grew, when you grew it, and any tips you have for yourself for the next year. And that's it, my friends. Stay safe, listen to your inner healer, and take care.